Alright, it's the update from the back wheel. Let's zoom out. I think it must be zoomed in. That's better. Alright, it's actually 29F, which is about 3 minus 3C. And still snow in the back. It's a nice dry, cold wind. Really dry, cold wind. Door shuts okay. Single shut. Let's try locking it, which is okay. Gotta do some repainting. That's embarrassing. Okay. The next task is down here. I've got three wires and multimeter. The multimeter and the wiring diagram will tell me like which is the feed wire, which is the high beam and which is the low beam. So the feed wire goes on that terminal, and the high beam probably goes up there and the low beam probably goes down there, but don't know for sure. So that's all very good. Floor switch. Now we've got the door in. It can be seriously looking down there. Can't see anything. It's probably frozen if there was anything in there. And yeah, really want to repaint that, don't I? Didn't come out very well. Oh. I want to have a look under there with the camera, just to see if we can see whether that's actually broken or not. If the actual switch, not, you know, the actual, it feels like it's the last sort of segment is just broken, that's why it won't sit there. Oh well. Oh good, it's sharp. Yeah. Well, there is supposed to be a gap. There's a gap in this one as well. That's alright then. Seen the bloody price of those things. Didn't fancy it. Okay, so the reason I'm in here, freezing cold. The reason I'm here in the freezing cold, looking at my fuel tank, it's because, you know, I've got the gaskets indoors. We've got to fit those. And, you know, I'm like looking at this, and that hasn't got the door catch, and I've not got one. So I've got to go buy one of those. And then, you know, then we move on to something else. You know, we just didn't tick it a box at a time. I've got the handbrake indoors, fully refurbed, so I may as well fit that, because it's going to be easier to fit it now than when the seat box is on. You know, you can mess about too much. Right, so there it is. Oh, airline. So I'm here at the fuel tank, and I've got a new gauze on the pickup pipe and a new cork gasket. One of the sides is adhesive, and I'm going to put some Haldite on the screw threads. Alright, the hinges, oh, they're not painted. Well, you know, it always takes a little bit of fettling, and this one is no different. It took some fettling, sort of painted it up. I've got a door top on there, and I put the check strap in there. And my striker plate had this weird thing in it. It's not a normal striker plate, and it used to have a really massive door gap, and this striker sort of like had an extension on it because of the rubbish door gap. Well, because the door gap's better, I've had to cut that down a bit. Shouldn't even have it on there anyway. So I've only got one or two pieces of weather seal in, and we got the door top on here now, so it shuts. All right, I'm happy with that. Even though the alignment isn't perfect, you can see the weather seal. shuts and it locks. So now we've got two pieces of glass in there. Celebrated with a shower of aluminium particles. Just installed a new turnbuckle here, and so this actually works. It's got a little thingy on it, so that's grand. Liking that. And if we go to the other side, here's the other side. I had to do the same on this side as well. So yeah, the tip here is to actually have the pop rivets in first. Don't pop rivet one in and then try and line it up if you're replacing these, because they have to go in dead square, and you can have a bit of distortion on here and it just knocks the holes out slightly. There's like any wear and tear. If you have a look here, I've got sort of undulations. Just don't make the holes. Anyway, so I back the back of the turnbuckles. I've got some grease. Hopefully we'll get something to put on the inside of a lid to stop it if it does rattle, which is likely to rattle, to be honest. Anyway, so that was a job done. Okay, I've got 5 more minutes of daylight. I was just thinking to myself, you know, how much I actually do like this truck. So from there it looks pretty well complete. So I was thinking, we've got to put the weather strip on the other side here, and if we add a tailgate, and then if we wired up the lights here, they've just got to go to the red multi and then the green brake, and then we do the indicators individually later. Oh yeah, don't want to forget that. And of course, number plates can come a lot later, really, because that would be the last thing, really. So what I was doing just a minute ago, so I had this multi-coloured situation here, and actually got too cold to do this, but I've got some leftover black stuff, sort of Prestic, Bostik, and I was just covering up the grey stuff with the leftover. And I've actually got so much leftover Bostik that where that seal, the rain channel, and you can see daylight through that rain channel, but I could seal along that rain channel. I was going to use JB Well, but we could use that black Bostik Prestic instead. So I don't know why I fitted the handbrake, because I think I've got to take it off to put the clutch on. And there was a really awkward clevis down there. You can just see the handbrake through there. Yeah, the bottom clevis was really awkward, but got it on. You know, anyway, so you know, this door's locked and so is the other side. Once we've got window locks, that'll be really sweet. You can see daylight through the other side, of course, because there's no weather sill. Also, you could see through, but there's no floor yet. So once the floor is on, that might be something slightly different. Anyway, so there's like plenty to be doing. Okay, so here we go. We can put little padlocks on these now, because these are nicely done. Yeah, it's still got a water problem in there, so what I'm going to do is like find some sort of seal to go across the top here. Just like a sponge seal, really. There you go. And on the other side, likewise. I don't know whether it's wet in there. Let's have a look. But it's definitely, yeah, it is a bit wet in there. So if we get some sort of sponge seal, then that won't rattle. And the thing is, of course, sponge seal, it's not exactly standard equipment, but you know, whatever. That was the thought. Actually, let's have a look at this. I've just noticed something which is rather bloody embarrassing, really. Oh look, I've got a bloody pond. Well, we're going to have to do something about that, ain't we? There is a pond, definitely. Well. Okay, I hope it'll dry out. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Hope it'll dry out. Okay, so, you know, that's about it really, isn't it? Now we've put the handbrake on, we can go home. Finished. Doesn't often happen. We've got to get a wing mirror as well. I forgot about that. We've had some dirty rain. You know, it's landed on the thing. There's some touch-ups to do. There is some touch-ups to do. You know, this is an ongoing thing in the head. rust. Got rust on the head. Alright, we'll have to work it out very slowly about what goes in next, because to be honest, I think it's going to be the we need the J clamp and J bolts for that. Oh yeah, we could put a coil on there and just hook that up. It's going to be easier to do it at this stage. Got to touch these up, of course. I mean, really, painting the inside out is going to be easy. Painting the inside of this one down here, that's not so easy. I might actually unhook it from the door, open it round, but it's taken a little bit of setting up actually. It popped open in the night. What happened there? But we're going to check that again, because I've made some adjustments on that door now. Anyway, so there we go. This is the back side of my instrument panel for the Land Rover, which hasn't seen the light of day for a year. And I cleaned it up. And oh look, the panel switch is missing. So what I've done is gone on to eBay and I've got this Lucas SPB104 switch PS71. And I've started to take it apart. Now it's got this, what you have is a connection here which takes this wire and this wire, and that's why they're bared off. So both of those go in one, and then from the ignition switch S, which is in there somewhere, that's A, so that will be S. It goes into the other one, and by using a pin, you press that little brass pin in, and your switch head will come off, and you take off the spring washer and a locking nut. Anyway, this is supposed to go through this hole, and it doesn't. Okay, it's not. It seems to be, I don't know, 0.5 millimeter too big. So what I've done is I've got an old one here. This is off a late series one with the key hold. So it's got the metal shaped. Let me just explain what I'm talking about with a late series one. With a series 2A, you've got plastic bezels on the warning lights. With the early ones, you had a metal bezel, and it went in this keyway. There's a keyway there and a keyway there. And this panel is almost a good one, but someone had drilled out that last bezel, so it wasn't quite perfect. Anyway, so having a look at this, no, it doesn't want to go in this one either. So that's odd. You know, so I've got to make a stupid modification on an original panel if I want to use this switch. Do you see what I mean? I've got to file it out. Only 0.5 millimeter, but I've still got to enlarge it. So if I ever find the original panel switch, it's going to be loose. And it's going to be, you know, well, it's what is known as mullering. I hate mullering stuff. The alternative is to put this in a lathe and take a little bit, do an interference cut and try and, you know, slide that down. Could try and file these threads down. This is a brand new switch which cost £13.50. You know, so it's comparative with the cost of this. You know, these go for about 20 quid. This one's mullered already because someone put a plastic thing in there. But this one, this is as it came off the truck, and it's only, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. That is, it's really annoying when this happens. And so what I've done is just used a metal file, take quite a lot of material off the threads. The thing is, you take too much material off the threads, then the locking washer, the locking nut, it's not really a nut, is it? Don't have any, it's not hex. Anyway, so the locking nut, which is knurled, don't want it to be too loose. I might have to use thread lock on that, but it's still not going through the hole as nicely as I would like. I mean, it's not even going through the hole. It will go through the hole if I started to screw it in. So the distance we're talking about is fairly small. So what I've got is a round file. And I'm just going to make it slightly larger. I'm just going to get rid of a sort of oxidation layer. That's probably about it. Just a noise. It's just annoying that you have to do something like that. You know, I hate it when stuff don't work. But that's enough of my grouching and griping. So you're going to have to just leave that with me for a little while. Okay, with a combination of removing metal from both the orifice, what are you supposed to call it, the panel switch hole in the dash, our instrument panel. So by removing metal from both the hole in the instrument panel and metal on the threads of the switch itself, not a great deal, that's brass from the threads. It's just about, you know, if you turn it, and I've started turning it now, and the damn thing's just well, it's still turning, but the switch body started turning. It does still work. I've tested it with a multimeter, but, you know, the problem is I've now got to take it out, and because I want to put the spring washer that come with it, I want to put it behind the panel fascia, so that I've just got the knurled locking washer in front of the panel, which go here. I mean, to be honest, I could just leave it like this. It is so tight in there, I could just leave it. And it's going to be, I'll probably have to thread lock this locking nut on there now, because I've taken off quite a lot of material. It's probably not going to lock up very well. It might be a bit wobbly. There you go. Someone will probably tell me it's the wrong switch for this. I mean, it certainly seemed to be, but pretty sure I wouldn't have bought it if it weren't advertised. Anyway, so it's going to look something like that. So I put the panel switch on, and it functions as a switch. Now, I'm a bit of a stickler, and the pin for the switch handle, or whatever you'd call that piece of black plastic, a switch handle is what I'd call it, a switch knob, could call it that. It's pointing up. Now ideally I would like that 180 degrees pointing down, and as the switch body is now rotating independently, the rest of it, although it's pretty well locked up, I've got the spring in the back there, and the locking knurled washer. There's a little bit of thread showing, but I think that's probably what you'd want. So that's with the switch out, and that's with the switch in. Okay, let's get a multimeter and test it. Okay, I've got one contact of the multimeter on the negative and the other one on the positive. I'm going to put it on the multimeter on the audio alarm for continuity. That's with the switch in. That seems to work, don't it? Pull it out and you get a sound. Push it in and it ain't. So the only bugbear I've got, apart from the fact it didn't fit to start with, and because I've sort of shaved bits off, it's not dead square, but it's pretty well close. And yeah, I just wouldn't mind that being out of sight. Although it does tell you how to get it off. So what I did to get it off was use a safety pin point. You could have used a small screwdriver, but if you use a safety pin point, you can push it in and start to pull it, because the point you're pushing in with isn't as big as the circumference surface area of that hole. So you can actually you can push the pin in and start to move the panel switch before you run out of clearance. Right, so we're getting ready to tear this down a bit. I knew if I left it out here it would start to fill up with water, so we've got to really get a move on this. So because I want to paint the thing up, I mean, it'd be difficult to know how much of it needs painting because there's wear here, but it's got a really good paint job on the whole here. It's not the original paint job, because if you look closely there's a couple of layers. Here's a good example of the layering. Oh, I don't know actually. If it's original paint I might just leave it, but I really wanted to sort of, I mean, it's got overspray on it, so it can't be original paint really. The turnbuckles here, it's got overspray on it. So really what the things I want to be doing is kind of cleaning the back of this, taking that off. I've got to take the runners off and repaint these. I've got to find the fixings for these adjustable seat. I've got one nut, it's a 5/16 UNF. I've got to make sure I know where all these tabs go and what direction they point in for the holding the seat. They're probably adjustable. Let's count these out. We've got one here, one here, one here, and one here. So I've only got 4. Okay, there's none of them at the back. These need repairing. These stays. They're not runners, they're just stays. Missing a bolt here. Missing a bolt there. Got a bolt there. It doesn't need that. Might not have ever had it, in fact. Okay, now I've been out with a WD-40. You wouldn't know it, would you? And it just about works. The adjuster. So when you've got the frame across the two, this one comes out as well. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is probably paint this, paint the upside down as well. I don't want that to rot out, so I've got to get the water out of there. Actually, to be honest, it don't look too bad. You know, given that there's some surface dirt from storage, yes. This will come off with a scraper. These spire nuts are all good. I mean, it's a shame to remove some of these fixings, really. These are for the hinges on that cover. I really want to paint this because, you know, it's got evidence. This is the original toolbox, and it's, you know, it just needs a little bit of preservation. You know, it's doing all right, that toolbox. It's in a lot worse than that. So if we can paint that up, I'll probably just clean the rest of this up and leave it. So the other part I've got today is a little Britpart Series 2A window lock. So let's go fit that, see if it needs any adjustment. Okay, the fixings I'm going to use for it are these pop rivets. And these are just a Land Rover pop rivets that I bought off eBay. But I don't actually know what size they are. They're aluminium. That's all I do know. Alright, back out on the wheelie bin. The first thing I did with this Britpart is to pack that full of grease down there, that hole. So I actually noticed there was a bit of rust on this. Let's see if we can see the rust. Oh yeah. So I've packed that full of grease because it's obviously going to be a bit of a rust problem. Potentially. Now, I said earlier we were going to use these pop rivets, but we're not actually, because they don't even go through the holes. Now the trouble is, the holes in the van do take these pop rivets. So with 3/16, which 187.5 thousandths of an inch, is the drill I used. And for this reason, I'm going to have to take this Britpart out, because the hole in the door top is bigger than this hole here. So unless I use some sort of reverse stud, this is not going to go on. So I just took those holes out, probably 187.5 thousandths. So it takes these pop rivets and had the holes in the door top match up with the holes on here. It was nothing, it was just, it was a breeze through. They were only a little tiny bit tight. Alright, I'm well pleased with that. It's in there really good and secure. There is a slight issue that my window won't actually go as far into the channel as is required. I actually press the thing in. Okay, so we've got the lock to lock, and what I had to do really was just open up the channel a little bit with a screwdriver just so that the glass would bed. So we just had to open up the channel so the glass would go far enough into the channel so that the lock will push in, go in and push out. Bit of newness in the channel. Anyway, so let's just lock that up. Lock it up there. That's going to work nicely. Alright. From under there, you know, there's a couple of layers of paint. Look at that bright silver. Let's go around this bush and have a look down here. So we see plenty of scuffing. A little still overspray on there. A couple of shades of paint on there. Some scuffing. Overspray. Now right here should be, let's go across and have a look. That's what should be there, a special stud. Now the reason I think it might be missing is because this has the adjustable seat, which makes the seat cushion sit on a frame, which might be too high for the strap to actually contact there. You know, there's no sign that it was ever one there. So because it's got the adjustable seat, it might not actually have that special stud. So anyway, let's have a look over here. I've started to clean it up a bit. And I've got the inserts that go here. I want to paint the inside of this first. There is some rust damage. I painted over it for now, you know, because the rust damage isn't significant enough to warrant a massive repair. Yeah, when it falls to pieces, then I'll repair it. It sounds a little bit, you know, it's a massive repair, whether it's falling to pieces or not. Self-explanatory repair, really. Just putting on new ears for the seats. On this side, it needs another one to come up that side. We just need one more ear. So this is just 2mm mild steel plate with a bend in it. I'll put the hole in there for the seat squab later. Like when it's all painted up and fitted, I can get it in the right place. A very black paint job, looking like repaired seat posts. So let's go and have a look at the seat box. She's looking cleaner. I scuffed it. I'll get back underneath that, touch that up later when it's on the vehicle. Need aerial on that. It's ground in dirt. So starting to put the Magna light back on, which I've tested with a multimeter, so it all seems to work. Now the self-cancelling wheel, I think it touches the steering wheel shroud. That's why there's that clearance there. If we go and have a look at the steering wheel shroud, I'll show you what I mean. So when the steering wheel's on, there's the shroud, and that's what the Magnatech wheel touches against. So when that rotates, it turns the wheels and cancels the indicator. I'm going to go have a close look at this. So this is the timing end main bearing, and that's number 1 on this engine. There's number 2, and up the other end is number 3. Good thick film of oil on these things. Okay, so that's exciting, isn't it? Yeah, it is, I'll tell you that for nothing. Incidentally, the engine mounts are in place on that side. Let's go over, and that side, and the bolts with the locking washers. The locking washers aren't tapped over yet, and neither are they painted. Okay, so there sits the crank. Now what I did was put a bolt here from the flywheel, not all the way in, but this is adjacent to split in the split seal, to make sure it's in the right place. You can tell it's in the right place because the hinge is just visible there, and it's it's kind of 5 degrees off the top, but I mean it's well within the parameter, I think. And we know that the side has got the part where the spring clips together, and that's all together. So, and I'm not really going to mess about with that seal anymore. I mean, so, you know, it's as near as, it's just to stop the seal getting unnecessary forces if it was not sort of centralized. That should be okay. Worthy of note, I found, I should have sort of noticed this a long time ago. We've got D795. Now if we go along to the actual block, you've got, it's upside down in the picture, but it's D795. So of course the main caps, take you over to have a look at the main caps again. D795, and I guess D is a standard, like from standard through to E, possibly. Anyway, so D795 matches on the block there, D795. This is why you can't buy these caps as a part, because it's machined all in sort of one, it's all matched. Okay, schoolboy error, I forgot my frost washers, which I've now put in place. So I had to take it all apart, and when I rebuilt it the second time, I put the crankshaft oil seal hinge, which is now just a little bit the other way. It was this side by 5 degrees, now it's that side by 5 degrees. And that should still be okay. So, you know, looking at previous wear, matching up with the oil galleries in the old bearings, which is what you would expect. Making sure everything's clean enough now. A little bit of Haldite on the retaining halves. Just letting that go tacky. Alright, well, I'm quite happy with that, to be honest. Although I did cut myself. This slipped while I was sort of helping it in with the new seal, and I got my finger trapped between that edge and the crank for a split second. And there's, oh well. So we're all talked up. Sent the caps, you know, number 1, so all the figures are the right way around, and you know, it turns by hand, even though it's all talked up. So that's lovely. Really happy with that. It kind of fazed me for a moment, but this cutout, so what this cutout enables you to do is to tighten up your recess, and down there we could try and pack some more silicone grease down there, you know, because that's the grease face, that's the face where it touches, so that's neat. Alright, so for me the next thing is going to be the flywheel housing. Flywheel housing is safe and securely on. Went with eight fixings. And really, I suppose I've put the housing on because when I took it off, I took the housing off first, and the engine fell away. It's quite dangerous. So we put the housing on, put the flywheel on next. And we'll put the clutch on, and then hopefully we can put that straight in as a sort of short block with no timing, because we'll do the timing when it's in the machine. Okay. So, you know, certain things are going really well. I don't have a timing chain gasket, a timing cover gasket, front cover gasket. So, you know, slow and steady sort of thing. It doesn't have any pistons in at the moment. Now I've put the engine tabs down, and obviously got to clean the gasket face up for the oil filter. So just tightening up the flywheel to 60 foot-pound, and I haven't got the primary pinion bush, but that's going in a minute. So I'm just used a rag against the flywheel and the flywheel housing, so that will hold 60 foot-pounds. Alright, she's back on the dolly after nearly a year, 11 months for sure, a long year. Now we put the clutch on, I lined up. We're on the Halfords dolly. Alright, so the sump is only held on with 4 bolts. The sump is coming off. We're putting the pistons on from the top. When we get the piston rings and when we get the piston ring tool, we'll put those in from the top. The tricky part of installing this engine now is basically staring you in the face. We got, you know, we've got the sump is facing up, the sump's got to face down. That should be facing the ground. Okay, you know, there's several ways to do this, and you think what we're going to do. Blankets, and we'll push the engine on its side. And then we will pick it up. Actually, it's probably not that hard. It's just as long as we don't rub this against the concrete. So that's what we're going to need. Lots of protection, lots of cushions. Cushions. That's what we're going to use. Cushions. That was a bit of a faff, alright? Now I did do it with the handbrake connected, but I don't think that was the reason of the problem. I am missing a couple of studs actually. Simply, it's no fault of the installation, it was how it was when I got it. I'm going to have to get those. Now the timing mark is through that hole down there, so I don't think I need to really worry about that too much. I have to think about that now, because wow, coming down, man, that was a real exciting installation, you know. Right, so my trouble is the rope distance. I'm going to have to use the jack down the bottom to lift up the front of the engine while I take the mount off, and then lift it up to put the rubber mounts in a different way. I'll have to have a look at that. What's happened without the update? I don't know where to start really, apart from I undid the gearbox mounts so that I could get the clearance to put this rubber mount in. The other rubber mount in went quite easily. But once these were in, the gearbox has gone back home quite nicely. Well, nicely. I mean, nicely, the gearbox is home. Now I fitted another slave cylinder, and the clutch works. So that's. But show you the. There is a thing, a homemade clevis down there, which I haven't got the clevis for the push rod, and so I've used the bolt with a split pin through it. Don't have to show it, do I? Okay, there's the sender and that, so that's going. I mean, of disappointment is this loose. I could do something about that, you know. That's just a little bit of a pop rivet job. Yeah, so we've got to put some transmission fluid in there. I'm going to put the prop shaft on probably tomorrow, because of the value of being able to stand here and do it. Although I've got to get under the truck to put it on down there, but that's not a big deal. I had to, I basically put the slave cylinder on from the ground up, because that far bolt, this bolt here, is really only accessible from underneath. Even with this level of clearance, I just found it easier to use that clearance, that hole at the bottom of the bracket, just to push a socket up and put it on by hand. So I put my indicator back on the flywheel, but I think all the timing is done from the front. We could put the handbrake back on. Now we could put the handbrake back on. I'll put it back on after I put the rear prop shaft on. I'm not going to refurb the rear prop shaft yet. That's a job for later. That is a job for like when I've got new tyres on it. Something like that. Refurbing the prop shaft, because it does work, so there's no point in doing too much if it's not even running. Do you see what I mean? Oh. Put it. Oh, you just got to watch your head on this thing. Look at that, take you up to the head banger. Okay, so put the coil on. We've got to get some fuses for the fuse box. There's only one fuse in there, so I need 3 more, 2 spares and 1 for the other thing. I've topped up the fluid level for the slave cylinder bleeding. Now it's time to take all this plastic off, because the plastic hasn't been very good. It's not letting the water escape once it's in there. I've put a rear view mirror up there. That's a bit loose. I don't know why that's so loose there. You know, I don't know if it's going to get on my nerves like that. I think it will have to get on my nerves. I'll have to take that off and fill it up full of anti-rattle washers or what have you. Yeah, and the only other thing I've done is just put the black earth cable back on the back. Sorry, it's a slight change of plan actually. Put the handbrake on course so that we could apply the handbrake, stop this turning, and fit the split pin to the final drive slotted knot on the back there before we put the prop shaft on, which is what we're going to do now. So let's just have a look there at the handbrake return spring. Handbrake return spring, which wasn't on this vehicle when I got it. So now everything works as it should. So now we have a working clutch and a working handbrake. And soon we will have a working prop shaft.